You lose Lane, how does that change life for you?
That was the most horrible thing ever. It was, I mean, when you're growing up doing this, you see people get hurt. You see, you know, a kid that had rode with us and been to some rodeos, his name was Jeff Crockett, that had got killed, you know, I think probably the year before Lane. But you don't think, you know, you don't think it's going to be you. And it's kind of a mindset that you kind of have to BS yourself into thinking it's not that big a deal. Pretty simple. Make the whistle, get off under your own power, and you're not going to get hurt. Or if you do, you're not going to get hurt that bad. But seeing that happen, you question and wonder, what the hell are you doing? Why are you doing this?
Did you think about giving it up, or?
Probably for about 5 minutes.
Yeah. Because,
you know, it's just kind of who we were. That's what we did. That's all we wanted. I couldn't think of doing anything else, but I can just say, you know, I can remember like it was yesterday, you know, having to call his mother. The first rodeo I went back and got on was in Casper, and it was a pretty tough thing to do. You know, I think it just brings, you know, the realness and, you know, the humanity of it all to, this shit's real.
The final bull in the 10th round that year, there's a extra 8 seconds. What's the reality of all that?
Well, it was, you know, it just turned into a very grueling, tired, miserable year, you know. And you know, I was having a good year, and he was having hell. You know, he'd gotten smoked in Fort Worth, and, you know, messed up his teeth, and he'd gotten, you know, and he was pretty famous for his wrecks, and his wrecks were because he and I were a lot alike in terms of we both pulled our rope really tight. We used a lot of rosin, and if we got bucked off, we weren't just coming off. We were tied to him. So yeah. If you're tied to him, you better be able to ride. And you know, he had said, you know, yeah, he did tell me, say, yeah, well, I guess this is your year. And I said, well, I guess we'll see. But we get to the NFR, and you know, I'm riding as good as I can, you know. My riding never did affect my riding. It just affected how miserable I was every day when I would wake up. And going into the last day, for me to win it, Jim Sharp has to get bucked off, and I have to win no less than third in a round to win it. And I said, that can't happen, because I never thought Jim would get bucked off, and then he gets bucked off for Mr. T, and I rode a bull that I didn't know a lot about. They hadn't ridden him very far, and he tried for about 4 seconds and then gave it up. And I wasn't very many points, but last round they didn't ride a whole lot. But I guess whenever I knew I rode him, the relief of all of that, it was the first sense of like peace, pleasure, excitement, or whatever, just to a really, really crappy year. And I was just glad it was over.